A while back, scientists discovered that the Earth has a sort of giant thermostat that controls the temperature of the planet. And these days, that thermostat is being jacked up, way up. Why? Well, technically it's all about greenhouse gases and fossil fuels. But when you really get down to it, it's about you and the choices you make. In 2009, you inherited an America that's all about living large. No, not like that, though some people are. Most people are living large and don't even know it. What I mean is, we're each taking up a ton of space. But that isn't easy to see because each of us covers just a little bit of ground. Your room and your stuff cover just a little more. Count your home and, well, yeah, you take up some space. But then there's all that space you're using that you never see. I mean the space in Iowa it takes to grow your food, or in Brazil and China to get the materials to make all your stuff, or in the Middle East to get the fuel to get you where you need to go. And then there's the space in India it takes to dump your stuff when it turns into garbage. You see, everything you buy, use, and eventually throw away has to go somewhere, and you take up that space too. Whether you live in a mansion or a little apartment, whether your family is loaded or broke, if you're an American right now, you're living pretty large. Can you believe that a regular American teenager right now, like you, needs 23 football fields worth of Earth's resources to live? I mean, you didn't choose to live this way. You were born into a world made by your parents and their parents, so you kind of got stuck living large. Add that to the fact that every day since you were like 1 year old, advertisers have been telling you that you could be cooler by having more, and making you proud to be living as large as you can. So whether you like it or not, you have your 23 fields. You want to know what that's like? Line them up end to end, and you'd run for a mile down your football fields before you were done. Now multiply that by all the kids at your school. You'd have to go from California to Colorado just to cover the land this one school uses. There are thousands of schools in America, and colleges, and offices, and retirement homes. There are 300 million of us, each with our 23 football fields. Now there's only so much space on Earth, and Americans aren't the only ones using it up. Some countries are living almost as large as we are. It's true that in some countries, people are living a lot smaller. But in most places, the population is growing, and almost everyone is racing to live as large as they can. That's because they think living well means living just like us, supersized. Everyone wants their 23 football fields, but we need 5 planet Earths for everyone to have that. As it is, we're using up more and more of the planet, taking the space the Earth needs to clean and regenerate itself. We're grabbing habitat from thousands of species of animals that are on the brink of extinction everywhere, and even starting to crowd in on each other's need for space. But running out of space and consuming all these resources creates a more immediate and invisible problem. See, what nobody can see is that living so large yanks that giant planetary thermostat quickly toward way too hot. Why? Because it takes a lot of energy to live so large, to move all those resources and garbage around, to move yourselves around, and to create the electricity you want. You need fuel, a lot of fuel. And you know what today's fuel of choice is, right? Yep, fossil fuels, mainly coal, oil, and natural gas. These fuels are made when living things decompose over millions of years. So the stuff we're burning now came from plants and animals that died 300 million years ago. There are lots of problems with fossil fuels, like they're underground and people go crazy to get them, blowing up mountaintops, digging up huge amounts of land, and even killing to get their hands on them. And another problem, of course, is that they're running out. But the biggest problem is that when we use fossil fuels in our cars, trucks, planes, to produce water bottles and plastic bags and make our electricity, we're turning up that thermostat in a major way. How come? Well, now we gotta understand how that planetary thermostat works. In simple terms, our Earth's thermostat can be turned up or down by changing the balance of gases in the air around us, in our atmosphere. Less than 1% of the atmosphere is made of special gases called greenhouse gases, which keep the planet warm. As the Earth gets warmed by the sun and puts off heat, these gases trap it, holding heat that otherwise would have disappeared into space. Gotta love those greenhouse gases. Without them, this place would be really cold. When we have just the right mix of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, our planet's temperature stays just right, and the Earth remains in balance. It means the polar ice caps stay frozen, making homes for polar bears and keeping sea levels from rising. Just right means the warm ocean currents continue to flow the way they have for thousands of years, keeping California warm and beautiful. Just right means salmon can live in their cold water homes, and gorillas can live in their warm, misty forests. It means Italians can grow olives, Americans can grow corn, and Brazilians can grow coffee. It means the seasons you've come to count on come every year just as they always have. In fact, every plant, animal, and person on the planet lives where they do and how they do by being perfectly adapted to their climate. It's something we've all come to count on, with our lives. Make a sudden change in the climate, and plants, animals, and even cultures get driven to extinction. But climate doesn't change too quickly as long as greenhouse gases in our atmosphere don't change too quickly. Now, the most important greenhouse gas for controlling the giant thermostat is carbon dioxide, or CO2. In fact, it pretty much does control it. Take a closer look at the planetary thermostat. Scientists have determined that every time CO2 gets turned up, global temperatures soon follow. Or turn it down and the temperature gets colder, like 20,000 years ago when the planet was in an ice age. So guess what you make a ton of when you burn all those fossil fuels? Yep, carbon dioxide. When we burn fossil fuels in our cars, trucks, planes, in making our stuff, and in power plants, we spew literally tons of carbon dioxide into the air. The atmosphere is filling up with greenhouse gases, trapping in all that heat, and jacking up the dial on that thermostat. Now, the Earth has a very cool mechanism for dealing with carbon dioxide. While certain things create it, like burning fossil fuels, other things capture it and take it out of our atmosphere, like plants and trees, the oceans, and small organisms in the soil. These are called carbon sinks. Just like the Earth can only give each person so many football fields, it can only deal with so much carbon dioxide from each person. But just like everyone is taking up too much space, they're spewing out a ton of CO2. So much that the trees and oceans and other carbon sinks just can't keep up. Add to that the fact that we're quickly clearing away our carbon sinks by cutting down our forests and damaging our oceans. The Earth has never seen anything like this before. It's like we're conducting a giant lab experiment on ourselves. In fact, many scientists think they understand the connection between CO2 and temperature only to a point. Jack up CO2 beyond what's normal for the Earth, and temperatures might jump out of control in ways nobody can predict. Jacking up the thermostat toward this point should be freaking people out, but it's happening quietly. Even though we know that CO2 and temperature go together, it takes carbon several decades to really heat the planet, and it lasts for more than 100 years in the atmosphere. So right now, we're feeling the CO2 from the 1950s, and we didn't stop there. We added more CO2 in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. And all that is nothing compared to how much we're making today. Crazy, right? But CO2 isn't the only greenhouse gas. We can't forget about those farting cows. No, I'm serious. When a cow farts and burps, and they do a lot, they put out a super greenhouse gas called methane, which is 20 times as powerful as carbon dioxide at trapping heat. In fact, over 20% of all methane we emit comes from this cow farting and burping. So, since 1996, you've lived through the 10 hottest years in recorded history. And this is melting ice caps, throwing off natural weather patterns, and starting to change life on Earth for billions of people. So here you are, just being a normal teenager, driving around, charging your phone, maybe eating hamburgers made from farting cows, and suddenly, wham! You're in the middle of a planetary emergency. You didn't start it, you didn't want it, but it's you who has to make the decision to stop it. Stopping it isn't going to be easy, but you do have the one thing you need to get started: knowledge, a clear understanding of what's happening. You are the first generation that's ready to face the fact that living large means lots of fossil fuels. Lots of fossil fuels means lots of CO2. And lots of CO2 means climate change that could get out of control.